All right, this is the time for our advertised June 18th, 2018 Aleppo legislative meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Backwards. I think you kneeled. I think he just kneeled.
Yeah, I did.
Next, could we have a roll call, please? Present.
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 Okay, I note that we have a quorum present. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. We have a good turnout here. Before we begin with our regular meeting, we have a continuation of the conditional use hearing by Masonic Village to expand their retirement living campus with the addition of 10 villas. I believe that we need to go into executive session briefly for the purpose of getting legal advice with respect to this matter. So at this point, we're going to mute the microphone on the video at home. Hopefully this month we will not be back there for 48 minutes. So we'll keep the video running and we'll come out. But as a reminder to all of you out here, even though the audio is not going, the video is still going. So behave yourselves because people at home can see. Okay, we'll go into executive session. Thank you. All right, so we are coming out of executive session at 7:20 p.m. And I think at this point, we need to clarify for the record that the evidentiary record is closed. During the earlier proceedings in this matter, we heard evidence from the applicant, and we opened the floor to objectors. So at this point, the record is closed. We've received our legal advice, and I'm ready to entertain any motions from the board.
I move that we approve the conditional use of application for Masonic Village at Sewickley to operate a life care facility on their property located on Merriman Road and the R2 district in Aleppo Township, subject to the following conditions.
And the conditions,
The conditions are as listed on an exhibit, which I will introduce at the conclusion of the meeting for the record. But basically, they are the conditions which I negotiated with counsel for Masonic, and he's had a chance to review those. In fact, we've incorporated some of their revisions into our list, and that list was also reviewed by the commissioners this evening. So we'll mark that as hearing exhibit, or we'll make it part of the minutes. We'll make the list of conditions part of them. We'll make it part of the record. And we don't need to do that. It should be made part of the minutes from the meeting, because this is your decision. It's not part of the record of the hearing. Am I right, Tim? Would you agree to that? It should be in the minutes from the meeting.
The record has been closed.
The record itself is closed.
Agree with that?
I think that's right. Yeah, it should be part of the minutes. So we'll make it an exhibit, and we'll attach it. We'll submit it and make it part of the meeting.
okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I have something I want to say. I mean, as with any development, I know that there are people that are on both sides of this issue. And for my part, for my vote, I'm going to vote yes on this motion. And I want those of you who are disheartened by that vote to know that it has not come without thinking very carefully about it. You know, we can disagree about whether or not Masonic growth is good for our community or not. The bottom line is that when they come with these applications, if they meet legal requirements, this is somewhat taken out of our hands. If they meet these requirements, then my understanding of the law is that we don't vote as a board to grant their application. We have to state a reason why we haven't voted to grant their application. And if we don't have a good basis for that, we put the township at risk of litigation. And again, I mean, to Masonic, I hope you don't hear me giving this explanation and think that somehow I'm against you or not in your favor. All I'm saying is that when we have to make this vote, there's occasionally little that can be done. And from my perspective, it's been a thoughtful process. And I hope you take some comfort in the length of time that we've put into doing this. It's not been something that we've done quickly. And again, I don't know how everybody else is going to vote. I'm telling you from my perspective where things stand. So I'm sorry for a long explanation, but that's my justification for my vote. I feel it's important. I think it's important to let you know why I'm voting the way I'm voting. Anybody else? All right, hearing no further discussion, let's take a roll call vote, please.
President Tobler,
Yes.
Vice President Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Darrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler. Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Is there another
I'd
application?
like to also make a motion to grant preliminary land development plans approval for Masonic Villages at Sewickley for the land development plan known as Sewickley Independent Living Expansion for property located on Merriman, subject to the conditions outlined for the aforesaid or referenced corresponding conditional use approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? For my part, I say the same things. I'll repeat and reiterate as if said here, right? Anybody else? All right, let's take a roll call vote, please.
President Dover?
Yes.
Vice President Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Commissioner Clavin?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Is there another application?
Make motion to grant minor subdivision plan approval for Masonic Villages at Sewickley for the lot consolidation plan known as property consolidation number 3 for Masonic Homes for property located on Merriman Road, subject to the conditions outlined for the afore referenced corresponding conditional use approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Well, let's take a roll call vote. I'm sorry.
President Dover?
Yes.
Vice President Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera?
Yes.
Commissioner Clavin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so that brings to a conclusion procedurally and substantively this portion of the conditional use hearing. We're going to roll into the rest of our meeting. So I always like to give anybody an opportunity that wants to get up and leave a chance to do that now so that we can minimize the disruption later. Thank you all. I
Well, I have
appreciate
one other request. Tim, we talked about this earlier, but can you give me an extension, another 2 weeks, just to get out the decision letter on these? Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the May 21st, 2018 legislative meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, I had a correction. With respect to the vote on the authority issue, I think the minutes said that Commissioner Dobler preferred William Barnes. And I think I would just rephrase that to say Commissioner Dobler preferred Dr. Barnes at this juncture. Because I don't want to make it, I didn't mean to imply that I was opposed to the candidate that was appointed. I just think that at this juncture, Mr. Barnes would have been the preferred candidate. So, given that modification, is there any further comment on the minutes? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a presentation of our 2017 audit.
Board members, thank you for having me here this evening. Just wanted to briefly go over, if I could, I set in front of each of you some correspondence this evening. The figure document is the actual audit report in draft fashion for the calendar year 2017. I basically wanted to walk you through it as I normally do, just to pinpoint some highlights in the report, and I'll refer to those other 2 letters as I go through the report. In the very beginning of the audit report, as I like to tell my board members, is our independent auditor's opinion. And what we've issued for Aleppo, as we have in prior years, is what's known as an unmodified opinion. And what an unmodified opinion means is that the information contained within the body of the audit report is presented in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession. There are no departures from those rules. In layman's terms, that's a good thing. That's the type of audit report that you want to have. Subsequent to that is a section known as the management discussion and analysis. And that's really a document, it's a collaborative effort between myself and the township manager, but it's really the responsibility of the township. And it's on Roman numeral pages 3 through 13. And I know the Board of Commissioners has a lot of information that they read after board And I would encourage you, the whole audit report itself is obviously a thick document, but this section of the report in particular is a section whereby it gives you in summary fashion the results of the township's financial activities, not only for calendar year 2017, but also shows a lot of comparative information 2017 versus 2016. So it's somewhat of a nutshell synopsis of the whole year compared with the prior year. So again, I encourage you to read that at your convenience. Now on to the actual numbers themselves and how you did for the year. I'm just going to turn you to a couple pages so you can see the final numbers for the year. On page 3 of the audit report, regular page 3 as I like to say, which is Exhibit C as in cat, is the balance sheet, the ending balance sheet for the majority of the funds with the exception of the pension funds here at the township. So if you look at page 3, in the first column is the general fund, which is obviously the most important operating fund that the township has. And if you look at the bottom of that, you'll see a line where it says total fund balance. And you can see that the township ended up the year with a fund balance of $1,119,681. Now that fund balance is broken down into 3 categories. Part of it, a little part of it, is for expenses that were paid in the current year that were really applicable to the 2018 year, about $71,000. There's another portion of it, about $105,000. And that was your operating reserve money that you've had for a number of years that you had a separate fund for a while. And we suggested to the township that you consolidate that as required by GASB, our governing body, into your general fund. And then lastly is what's known as the unassigned portion of fund balance, which is the $943,000 for the township. If you recall, those of you who've been on the board in the past, I talk about the breaking up or the splitting up of your fund balance and your ability to do so. There's a regulation or an accounting rule in our profession known as GASB 54, and it has allowed the board to segregate its unused fund balance, which in your case is the $943,000, to break it up into a couple other categories if you so choose. One is known as assigned and one is known as committed. And those are just whereby the board says we'd like to assign or commit so much money for a particular purpose, whether it be a building project, things of that nature. So it allows you, what you're actually doing is you're telling the public, hey, I see that we have 943 of unassigned fund balance, which before you do anything else is saying to the public, we have that available to use for general operations going forward. But what you can do prior to year end is say, we want to assign or commit a portion of that for a particular purpose. So the taxpayer then says, okay, they're managing their fund balance, using it for particular items as they deem may be appropriate. And then the remaining balance, which may be less, is in the unassigned category. The reason I say that to you is because everybody wants to know what's that magical amount for every municipality of what an unassigned fund balance should be going forward. And really, it all depends on what you do with your finances. You will see, as I'll talk in a minute, that during the year you transferred some additional monies at the end of the year into your capital improvement fund. So you actually increased the fund balance that was in that particular fund. But you don't always have to do that. You always don't have to physically transfer monies into another pot. You can actually leave them in the general fund without doing that physical transfer by assigning or committing that portion for a particular purpose. So it's an option that the board has. Again, the reason I say that is there's a governing body out there. It's called, a professional society out there known as the Government Finance Officers Association. They've done a lot of studies with fund balance and what's an appropriate fund balance level. And they seem to believe that you should be at or try to be at a position where your fund balance, your unassigned portion, in your case, the $943,000, you're at or around an average of 2 months worth of expenditures. Well, for Aleppo Township, that 2 months average worth of expenditures is about $220,000, which is 20% of your budget. You can see at Aleppo you're at 943. So you far exceed that GFOA recommendation. So what some boards may do is they may take chunks of that unassigned fund balance, like I said, and either move it into their capital improvement fund if they have a planned project, or they'll simply assign or commit it for a particular project so that their unassigned comes more in line with that GFOA recommendation. You don't have to do that. Some boards keep all of their money in the general fund. They don't have a capital improvement fund like you do. It's all in what the board chooses to do. But I just wanted to throw those options out to you so that you understand you have them and where you stand in relation to that recommended level.
Other than saying to the public what we would plan to do with those assigned funds, is there any other benefit to doing that?
The only other benefit,
The money sheltered from a claim against the township?
no, that could be the case. Well, and that may be an unfair question to ask you at this point. I don't know if that would be the case.
Okay.
That would simply be saying you're marking it for a particular purpose, but I'm not sure that would shelter you from, say, a lawsuit or some certain things that may affect the township of them not being able to access that portion of your money.
Okay.
Don't know the answer to that.
My guess is it will not.
Is
We're not.
my guess also, but
Right.
Worth a try.
And George, our capital improvement fund already has the funds for Squiggly Hedge Drive in it for the year.
Yes.
That's in this 5.
Because of our very healthy position, Gwen, Mark, and I have started to assign funds from the general fund to specific uses. The dominant specific use will be roads.
Because it's most expensive. So do we need to use any of this 943 to move over to capital?
No, and when Ben completed a 20-year road study, we've decided that we want to keep a minimum balance in that reserve. We will feed it from time to time from excess revenues over expenses. We will also feed it from time to time from that unassigned general fund.
If you turn 2 more pages to page 5, that's a mini profit and loss statement, if you will, for all of your funds, with the exception of your pension fund for the year. And I'll call your attention just again toward the bottom of page 5. If you look at the last 3 lines, they tell a story for the year. Net change in fund balance for calendar year 2017, you had excess expenditures over revenues of $76,870. But notice right up above that, the biggest chunk of why that's in a deficit, if you will, for 2017 is that you transferred $307,000 from your excess for the year into your capital improvement fund. So if you were not to have done that, you would have ended up with a $230,000 surplus with regard to, you actually moved it from one pot to another pot prudently for what your capital needs are going to be. So it's important to look at that when you're looking at those last 3 lines to remember that you did that.
So, again, clarification, we did that in anticipation of the $400,000 we're going to spend on Squiggly Heights Drive, and we will continue to anticipate those.
Okay.
And then on a couple pages after that, on page 7, is again a mini budget versus actual financial statement. These are the major categories, and this, by the way, is just the general fund. This is the major categories of revenues and expenditures. You'll see a column that says final budget, which is the original as well. You'll see the actual numbers that we just discussed, and then the positives and negatives to the far right column. You can see where you did well, where you didn't do so well compared to budget. In the back of the audit report, for the sake of the board, starting on page 35 through page 40, I've shown a detailed breakdown of your revenues and expenditures by each of these categories on this summary page so that you can get a better idea where specifically you did well versus budget or where you didn't hit the mark so much versus budget. So I'd like to call attention to the board members to those pages because I think they're very valuable in understanding how you did and also in budgeting going forward into the future. So I just want to call your attention to those particular pages. The last fund that I wanted to speak about just briefly was on page 9. That was the police pension plan, just to see how it did for the year. When you look at page 9, again, a profit and loss statement, and you look at the 3 lines from the bottom, the 3rd line from the bottom says change in net position. With the increases in the investment earnings and fair value, you had an increase of almost $63,000 a year to take you up to almost $880,000. Subsequent to that page are the notes to the financial statements that run on page 10 through page 34. Just if you wanted to know more information about some of the numbers that are on the balance sheet, your long-term debt, assets, things of that nature, you're going to find more detail of that information in that notes to the financial statements section. And then, as I mentioned before, all of that are those schedules, those detailed budget versus actual schedules. And then at the very end of the audit reports, required information you have to stay in conformity with those rules that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation related to pension. Those are just schedules in the back that are required to be in the body of your audit. So again, you're a little bit disadvantaged. I know you're probably aware of the numbers, but this is the first time you're seeing a thicker audit report. So I wanted to present that to you and show you that, pinpoint the highlights for your review. The other 2 pieces of audit correspondence, I won't go into those in detail other than to tell you that the 3-page correspondence is a required communication to the board of directors at the conclusion of the audit engagement, basically to tell you if we ran into any problems in the performance of the audit, if we have any disagreements with management. And as usual, as we like to say to the board, we did not have any of that. The audit was efficient. We were able to conduct it in an efficient manner with the help of your staff. So there were no problems there. And then the other document is our management letter. A lot of those comments that I have in the management letter recommendations are fairly consistent with what they've had in the prior year. It's just how you do your operations in the business office. So that information is consistent with the prior year. And as I always do in those management letters, I gave you kind of a 5-year history of your fund balance. And also, again, pinpointed some areas of overs and unders, budget versus actual, just to, again, highlight those particular areas for the members of the board so that you can see it again and understand how you did for the year. So basically, in a nutshell, all that paperwork, so hopefully that was as quickly as I could get through it and succinctly to hit all the highlights. But if you have any questions, either tonight or once you get a chance to go through it in detail before we close it out. The only reason, 2 reasons it's in draft this evening. One is out of professional courtesy for the board. If you look at something and say, hey, Mark, what's this? And yeah, a possible change. I don't think that would normally happen. We still like to give you that opportunity. But second, there's a couple little notes in the notes section of the audit report that I think it has to do with the non-uniform pension plan. Travis from my office is waiting for some updated actuarial information, which will change some information in the notes very briefly, but not on the financial statements that we discussed, and that's why I left it in draft. I wanted to get these numbers to you as soon as possible so you can see how you did. So again, I'll be more than happy to come back to a future meeting if you see something, if you have questions, or else if that's not possible, you can always contact me directly at my office for any additional information that you might need.
You identify one, what you characterize as material deficiency with regard to internal controls. Any suggestions as to what, if any?
That material weakness is common in a lot of our municipalities. And the reason that is because the changes that we have to make to what Gwen does involves a certain level of accounting knowledge to get it from what's known as the cash basis up to the full accrual. And that's adding in assets, long-term debt, just things of that nature. And most of our municipalities do not have someone on staff who possesses that expertise. And when that happens, what that does is somewhat take away our independence, because when we're putting those numbers together, we're in essence auditing ourselves, right, which we never like to say, but it's the fact of having, or else you never have your financials done the way you want to have done. So because of that, we have to tell you that that's a weakness and put that risk out there that exists internally.
Thank you.
All right, so is there a motion to accept the audit report?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I guess my only question on that is my ever-present question.
Well, this is just a draft.
Oh, it's just a draft at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well then we won't, are we going to accept it subject to the,
We're waiting for a piece of, Travis is, in Mark's office is waiting for another piece of information, so when that comes in, then I think, and then in the meantime, if anybody has any questions,
Right.
we can come back with a
Okay.
final
Should be on the
condition
section.
acceptance.
okay, so we'll put it on the agenda next time. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Very
Thank you.
clear.
Thank you.
All right, on to our reports, public safety.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How you guys doing? Okay, so we had a total of 41 assigned calls throughout this last month. Just a brief thing about some of the things that are going on.
I'm sorry, before you get into it, can you tell us what exact reporting period you're talking about?
Actually,
Thanks, Mark.
May 1st through May 31st.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So we had a few attempted fraud reports out of Masonic Village. Thankfully, no one followed through. They contacted police soon enough and let's get involved with them. We were able to stave off anyone being out any money, which is a real good thing. So responded to a suspicious circumstances off of Rhodes Avenue. Somebody's smoke detector was thrown away in the garbage. The people up. Had a few down trees. Fire companies were responded out to remove them, one off of Duff Road and one off of Red Gate. No other issues there. Dog complaint off of Merriman Road, dog running in the woods. Cat complaint off of Timber Lane, nothing major. 2-vehicle crash on Red Gate. The unit behind the truck misunderstood what the truck was doing and went around the other side and ended up smacking. Very minor damage, no injuries. Speed wasn't an issue, just misjudgment. Had a high rate of speed. The vehicle going through the Swickley Heights Manor. Officers responded there. Nothing further on it. The vehicle was gone. Nothing else from the complainants there. CO alarm up off of was a Tekake Drive. Check on the welfare of a elderly female walking up Main Hill out here. Again, just assisted her lady getting home. And per the complaints from the board last time, I had several officers sitting out section there, watching the stop signs. A few citations were issued, but mainly most of them didn't seem like too many violations. But we'll continue to monitor that situation. In addition to that, a resident that was, while you were in the executive session, asked me about solicitors in the area. It's that time of year. I'd like the people to know that there are a lot of companies coming through. We have to give them permits. They go through our office, we check them out, I sign on them, and they have a permit. If somebody comes to your door, knocks on your door, and they're trying to sell you something, the first question out of your mouth should be, let me see your permit. And they should have that permit on them. If they don't have it, give us a call at 911 and we'll come out and check them out. Even if they do have a permit and they're acting suspicious, give us a call. We'll come out and talk to them. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Okay.
Have there been any difficulties?
No. It's just that time of year, and we had a lot of companies come to us through all of our jurisdictions, Aleppo included, and thus far, other than just being annoying, knocking on doors at 8 o'clock at night, which they're permitted to do in most places, that there hasn't been any rudeness or anything like that.
I would add that a year or two ago, Corporal Simkoviak and I sat down and we did what I thought was a very informative video about solicitation. So, Kim, if you do me a favor, when you send the draft digest, you put a bullet in there that says link back to solicitation video. I'll just relink to that, and hopefully we can keep that issue on the top of people's minds. Thanks for bringing that up, Chief.
Yes.
Now, I had a question for you, though. The attempted fraud, are there details of that we think would be beneficial to other residents? Is that something that you're concerned may be repeated elsewhere?
So the main attempted fraud ones that we deal with in elderly folks in general is usually it is a phone call saying that the grandson, granddaughter is locked up in jail, or they have them in custody and they need immediate cash flow to set them free. And these people, just by doing the nature of what they do, they have access to Google and the internet and Facebook and every other social media site. They're typically able to garnish this person's information, other kids, grandparents, or grandkids, and they say the first name, and they say, "Hey, this is so and so. I'm in jail," and then they hand off the phone to a supposed police officer. Quite typical scam. Unfortunately, people do fall for it. I highly recommend that if you do get any phone call from anyone saying that they're locked up in jail, that's not how it typically goes, is to hang up and call the immediate family, even though they tell you not to. Hang up and call the immediate family and make sure that your family member is okay. And that is what these people did. And fortunately, nothing staved off any loss of money. So that is the most typical scam that we see.
By the way, if you want information on that, the FBI website has a terrific video on the scam. It's called the grandmother scam, because they call a grandmother. I know because it happened to me, and it's incredible how realistic it gets. Sometimes it's an attorney calling from your daughter was in Mexico and she got picked up at a party, and she's and then you'll say, well, can I talk to her? And they'll say, well, she's in a cell right now, but I'm her attorney, and if you send me $2,000, I can make bail and I can get her out. And they know some personal information, like you say, so it gets very scary because they garner little bits of information off other places on the internet. So they know first name, they know that it's your grandchild, they know, it's your youngest grandchild. So there's enough detail that it gets very persuasive. Anyway, FBI website is terrific, and Justice Department has a great website.
And I'll once again cheer for Corporal Simkoviak. We also did a very good video on fraud prevention, talking about the grandmother scheme. So also, please, on the draft digest, give me another bullet to reference back to the fraud prevention video, and we'll hit that as well. I appreciate that.
Information out there fast enough.
Yeah, great. All right.
Anything for me?
No.
Thanks,
All right.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, emergency management. Public Works.
I have the report for tonight. For the month of May and into the beginning of June, the crew cut the grass throughout the township. They cleaned the skylights inside the township building. They had been full of stink bugs in the hallway, so they're no longer full of stink bugs. Put up new emergency lights throughout the building. You notice some of the lights have changed. Some of these haven't been changed yet, but as you can see, the one in the kitchen updated with a new exit sign with new LED emergency lights. Cleaned up the roads after heavy rains. On Ferndale, they had to dig out an old catch basin and install a new one. And they trimmed the bushes and did the beds and the mulching of the beds in the township building.
Okay, thank you. Engineering. You have a report for us?
Verbal.
Yeah, sure.
The paving project. We held the pre-construction conference this afternoon with Mealy & Mealy. Going to issue notice to proceed July 2nd. They can't give us a hard date yet, but they were thinking probably not till middle of July with the work they have going on. Promised that they would provide proper signing and at least 7 to 10 days notice so the residents can be notified. And their intent is to come on site, remove the existing pavement, and follow up with stone paving in one continuous operation, doing it in sections to allow residents to try to minimize impact to the residents, and they're going to stay until it's finished. So it sounded like they were going to continually move crews in and out as not to do work and then leave. We had asked again, like, please get done before school is back in session. That was not a concern to them. They definitely want to be in and out of there before school is back in session. It would impact their progress, and they wanted to knock it out hopefully in a week to 10 days, depending on how things work. So Bordercom, they do need to submit a formal schedule, but they were saying all the right things, what we wanted to hear, and the continual work progress, notification to the residents, and get in and out. So I think all good things, and we'll keep you posted as we know more. But
And so just for the avoidance of confusion for folks that might not be up to date, that's
Yes.
Swickley Heights Drive you're talking about.
correct,
And so we're talking mid-July, we think, a week to 10 days.
yes.
Excellent.
And, week to 10 days notice, but another week to 10 days construction is kind of what they were looking at. Again, all weather dependent, both of those, but they want to get in and get out.
Is it a Monday through Friday kind of thing, or is it weekends or early morning or?
Sound like they want to do Monday through Friday. Most likely not weekends. Again, I think weather will control that. Weekends probably are harder for them for traffic control purposes. Again, I think they want to just get in and out. It sounded like they didn't want to leave it. They had concerns with lighting and safety, so they didn't want to leave build edges or anything there that would be dangerous at night. So they were planning on how to start and complete the project.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Real quick, Gwen, would you keep Swickley Heights Manor updated, please?
Yeah.
All right, communications. I have 2 emails to read. The first comes from Carolyn Smith. And I'm going to cut out the first paragraph. It was saying thank you to us. Just to take this opportunity to tell you that I read an article in the news that Amazon is interested in leasing the building across from the township building. This concerns me because of the much increased traffic it would bring to our area, not only with trucks delivering many supplies, but the increase of hundreds of delivery drivers coming and going in all directions. As you know, we only have single lanes on Deer Run Road, which gets bogged down with very slow traffic. But the most dangerous thing is to allow more traffic on Redgate Road. It is a road that is very narrow, steep, and dangerous. It is also constantly and slowly falling apart. There is also much more traffic on Redgate Road, which makes it even more dangerous. I hope that the commissioners can address some of these issues with Amazon if they pursue this business adventure. I am also aware that we could use tax money in the township and hope that some negotiation is possible. Thank you for allowing me an avenue to discuss my concerns. Always look forward to your informative emails. Carolyn Smith. So why don't I just briefly address some points to that? I don't know if anybody saw any of this in the news. Maybe Gwen and I have been on vacation, so we haven't had an opportunity to talk much to each other. I don't know if you have anything that you want to share publicly. I can tell you from my perspective, I only know about Amazon what I also have read in the newspapers, which is to say that according to the newspapers, Amazon signed a lease for that old FedEx building. You have anything to add to that?
That's what I know.
That's all we know. With respect to Ms. Smith's specific concerns, again, I don't know what their use is going to be, but correct.
Distribution center.
Well, that's reportedly.
Right.
Assuming that the news reports are correct and it's going to be a distribution center, my understanding is that they are already zoned for that and they wouldn't need any permission from us to do anything. Correct?
Almost
FedEx.
almost identical move.
Well, before it was
Movement from
FedEx,
FedEx.
right? Before it was FedEx, it was Pepsi, and it was a big distribution center for Pepsi trucks. They were in and out all night long.
We don't use Redgate Road for heavy truck traffic. It's not set up for that. It's only going down to 79, right? Is that right?
Normally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what
Right.
Redgate Road had to do with that. So
Well, Redgate Road is in poor shape. It is a state-owned road, and we have contacted them repeatedly about their dips and sink spots in it. And
is there truck traffic on that road though?
I don't know.
Is it rated for truck?
Well, it's state, so they would control what the weights. I can't imagine they choose it because it's so steep, but.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like.
I would be surprised because up until about 2.5 years ago, that road had no guardrails. And it was narrower than it is now, which is not the best road even today. And it has 4 areas that are sinking rapidly. You know,
So
if
there
we're
are-
allowing trucks on there,
it
I
should
think
be
we ought to have our
posted that it's not, if it, I mean, the state would be responsible for posting a sign
Right.
if it isn't set up for trucks and, is there signage? Does anybody know?
I don't know. There is, I've never noticed them. Next time, I'll look.
Next time you go that way. I never go that way, so I don't know.
Okay, so that was email number 1. Email number 2 is an issue that we have later on the agenda, but I'll read it now. This is from Dawn Black. Matt, I would like to share my opinion regarding the upcoming contract with the Ohio Township Police Department. I believe we are fortunate to be served by a professional, well-trained, staffed, and equipped department. Admittedly, my experience is limited. I have on a couple of occasions dealt with them, and every time was very positive. I've met Chiefs Haney and Miklos at township meetings and spoke to Sergeant Beck. I was always treated with respect. The actions taken regarding speeding on Weber Road have had an impact. Several neighbors have expressed appreciation for the proactive approach of the department. I believe the Ohio Township Police Department is well-staffed, well-trained, and equipped. In addition to the patrol division, they have a detective division, K-9, members involved and trained in SWAT, DUI enforcement, narcotics, and drug investigations. They even have marine and off-road capabilities. I don't believe any other nearby department comes close to the capabilities and readiness of Ohio Township. I believe it would be a mistake to contract any other police department to keep us and our children safe and protected in this sometimes scary world. Sincerely, Don Black. And again, I think we'll talk about that more when we come to this in the agenda, but I wanted to read that. Prior to the meeting, I was handed a flyer for the Fern Hollow Nature Center Summer Celebration. This is to take place on June 22nd, 2018 from 5:00 p.m. until 8:00 p.m. It features Leap of Faith, which I imagine is, boy, I sound old to say, some sort of a musical outfit, some sort of a musical. Lest anybody think that we are becoming a neighborhood bulletin board, the reason that this is of particular relevance to Aleppo Township is that Fern Hollow Nature Center members and residents from participating boroughs, including Aleppo Township, are admitted free. Otherwise, admission would be $20 per family or $7 per person. But some of you may recall that Aleppo Township makes an annual donation to Fern Hollow Nature Center. And because of that donation that we make, our residents are admitted free to this program. So again, that's June 22nd, 2018 from 5:00 p.m. until 8:00 p.m. We pay for it, so take advantage of it.
Can we get a copy of that?
We will, hey Kim, when you send me the digest, the draft digest, please make sure that this is an attachment as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is my communications report. And that means that we're moving along to planning and zoning.
No real report. There's a motion at the end to approve a lot line revision plan. I put it at the end. You can take it here, but it's not a report, so I put it down here.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
And you had nothing else? Okay, tax collector. Hello.
Evening.
You should have your month of May 2018 report in your packet. Just to let you know, for the month of May, we collected $64,547.02 in taxes, which include property, delinquent real estate, realty, earned income, local services, and business privilege tax. Then I also provided all the account balances for all the accounts that we have, the PNC checking account, which currently has $651,492.98. And then we go to the Pliget accounts, which is the state fund, the general investment, the reserve fund, and the capital improvement funds. With the state fund, we have about $70,468.43. General investment, we have $761,863.30. Reserve fund, we have $105,052.79. And the capital improvement fund is $647,763.03. So total monies on hand, when you add that all up, is $2,236,640.50. We then have to subtract out the pledged accounts, buds, and also the targeted funds. So your net operating funds for Aleppo for the month of May is $1,413,356.28. I also provided the sewer bond account and sewer capital account fund balances there for you as well. On page 3 and 4, basically you have your bar graphs comparing the month of May 2018 to May of 2017. You're going to notice a very big discrepancy there in property taxes. Basically, that is due to timing of information. For the first week of June, we received a little over $150,000 in property taxes, so that will be reported in the next month. So that's kind of where that stands. We also compared the year-to-date budget right now. So, I think we're doing pretty well, right on target with the collections and all that. And then the rest of it's just kind of comparing last year and the year-to-date 2018 to 2017. So, any questions with any of that?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, on our agenda, we have under G(i), we have some motions here.
Whenever there is a property tax, whenever somebody gets a reassessment and get their property tax amount reduced, they have to be exonerated for that amount that they were originally owed. So we just have to make those 3 motions to exonerate them from owing a certain amount to the township. So it's formal.
Okay,
I move that we exonerate Rebecca B. and Lawrence A. Lynch at 308 Swickley Ridge Circle for a reduction in assessed value with a refund of $68.60. We'll do all 3 motions at once.
why don't we?
Okay. Also that we exonerate Rebecca B. Lawrence and Lawrence A. Lynch at 308 Swickley Ridge for a reduction in assessed value, also in the amount of $68.60. One reduction is for 2018 and the others for 2017. Also for Mildred D. Krulak, 209 Ferry Road, for a reduction in assessed valuation for 2017 with a refund of $177.33.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Comment, I think that it's 308 Swifty Ridge Drive.
Right.
Okay. I'm just not certain.
Okay,
I'll correct that from the tax.
any other comments? All right, let's just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you. All right, then we move along to treasurer. Do you have any? He's gone.
You did them both.
Right. Okay, finance, we have some motions on the agenda.
I move to approve the May bill list in the amount of $79,980.56. To ratify May prepaid bills in the amount of $13,913.23. And to ratify May payroll transfers in the amount of $24,955.03.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you. All right, COG. Was her memo in the agenda packet? So Susan's memo is in the packet. I would specifically draw attention to the upcoming Hard to Recycle event, which takes place on, go ahead and help me out.
June 30th
June 30th at
at Quaker Valley High School.
Quaker Valley High School. I would, however, make the same reminder that I always make, which is that in Aleppo Township, we pay for at your door collection of hazardous waste. We pay extra for that. So everything that they will collect at the COG pickup, you can get picked up for free at your door. If for some reason you really want to have this material picked up at the COG, then you can go do that. In addition, however, to the regular memo, I wanted to read an email that I received from Susan Hockenberry, the executive director, last week. Delegates and colleagues, this morning I received a sudden notice that Sewickley plans to withdraw from the Quaker Valley Council of Governments effective December 31st, 2018. This is certainly an unfortunate development. When I tell the story of our region, I frequently promote our assets, including our strong business district, bookends of Bellevue and Sewickley. Though Sewickley remains in our geographic area and an important part of the economy, this decision sidelines them in the important progress being made in advancing the area. The hard work of the Board of Delegates, Managers and Secretaries Committee, and our allies in rebooting Quaker Valley COG are paying off. We are engaging an ever-widening network of supporters and endorsements as recent increases in funding to our area demonstrate. Our COG, in developing a niche around technology and corridor development, is well poised to assist member communities in providing efficient services, make data-driven decisions, attract investment, and protect and improve our neighborhoods. I will reach out to Sewickley and find more information and reaffirm to them that they are important to our region. In the meantime, I encourage you to contact me with any questions or concerns you have. COGs, as voluntary organizations, are vulnerable to these types of developments. However, I am hopeful that we will continue our progress and strengthen our bonds through the experience of overcoming this difficulty together. Best regards, Susan. So that's all I know about it. I got a similar email from the president of the COG Board of Directors saying essentially the same thing. I know I received a request for a comment from the Sewickley Herald, so I think you're going to read about this in the Herald coming up sometime soon. And I thought that you should hear it from me before you read it in the newspaper. So, I mean, I'm happy if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them. I don't know anything more than that, though.
Seems to be very quiet. I heard a word. I knew what was happening, but I haven't heard any comments.
Gwen, do you have anything to add?
Same email.
Yep. Okay. Ambulance authority?
No report.
Solicitor?
No report.
Turning then to our unfinished business. We have a motion to ratify the sale of the old dump truck bed to John Fulmer for $1,750 through municipal bid with the proceeds deposited into the truck fund.
It's no move.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. I'm a little confused. I don't understand. This is unfinished business? Have we?
Well, we talked about when we bought the new bed, we had talked about trying to sell the old bed. So it was months ago that we did talk about it. But we bought the new dump bed that the board approved, the beautiful, shiny, new steel one that you see going around. And this was, it sat for a little while. And then we put it on municipal bid and sold it with a minimum of $750. So we got $1,750. So we were pleased to get a little more. So this is just basically to get into the record that we use municipal bid, so that was the bid process. And we did collect the money, and it'll go, that $1,750 will be put into the truck fund to help supplement the next purchase.
Okay. So, but this is in essence a new motion.
Yes.
It's a new motion, yes.
Okay. All right. I don't think there's any need to defer on this, so unless anybody else has a motion to defer, hearing none, then we'll turn to voting on the main motion. And everybody understands the motion is to ratify the sale of the old dump truck bed to John Fulmer for $1,750 through municipal bid, with the proceeds to be deposited into the truck fund. Does everybody understand what they're voting on?
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The opposed say no. That motion carries. All right. There's another motion here at 8B. Motion to adopt the intergovernmental cooperation agreement ordinance entering into a 3-year contract with Ohio Township for police services.
Second.
Well, I'm not making that motion. I'm
Okay.
making that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion?
Have we heard from any other municipal?
If not, I spoke directly to the manager of Sewickley Heights Borough and expressed or asked them exactly what I was directed to ask, if they'd be interested, and she said she would talk to her council and get back to me, and never did. And I left a message with Sewickley asking for a call to discuss and never got a response.
Well, I think that in and of itself is a response.
That is not very professional, so that does not respond. Sorry.
Sounds like you've eliminated your competition, chief.
I think because of what was stated in the previous email.
Absolutely.
I've said it ain't better than
You didn't write that. You didn't drive that, did you?
By the way, Chief, the water keeps getting deeper.
All right.
So what you have in your packet is just a breakdown of the costs, because somebody had, I can't remember who, but somebody asked about the costs over the last couple of years. So here's a breakdown of current 2 prior contracts and expected upcoming contract. And this has to be adopted via ordinance, and the ordinance was advertised for adoption tonight. So it's ready. It's ready.
Timely.
Right.
Timely.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And furthermore, the old contract expires when?
June 30th.
So there's no time to defer, right? If we don't pass this contract today, we are without a contract for police services.
You would be without a contract unless a month-to-month was arranged.
All right. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Everybody understands the motion is to adopt the intergovernmental cooperation agreement ordinance entering into a 3-year contract with the Ohio Township for police services. Everybody understands?
Yep.
All right. Let's do a roll call vote, please. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. That motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Look forward to 3 more years.
Tell John we'll get it timed and I'll get it over.
Okay. Motion to adopt ordinance regarding junk yards and storage lots.
An amendment that we reviewed
Right.
a month ago.
And we talked about that. That's the fee.
Increase.
Correct.
Right.
Increasing the fee.
And we couldn't vote on that then because we needed to advertise it.
Correct. And it
And
has
it's been advertised.
Mhm.
So,
Move that we adopt the ordinance regulating, the amendment to the ordinance regulating junkyards and storage lots.
Second.
okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, sir. That lot, is it supposed to have a fence all the way around it?
We'll recognize that lot is not necessarily
We're talking about more than that lot here. Okay.
right. This ordinance addresses all junkyards and storage lots.
What's the requirement for fencing?
There,
That'd be part
I
of
don't
what
think there is one.
it's in the
Oh, no,
permit
there
that
is.
gets issued.
there is.
Yeah, there's a buffer and there's a fencing requirement.
It would be a requirement in the permit that gets issued.
No, it's
No,
in the
there's
ordinance.
actually one in the ordinance. There's a requirement for fencing.
Right.
I noticed the one on Weber Road, the fence is kind of squatty and I don't know if there's sharp stuff in there, just it's kind of be a hazard. Just
I'd have to pull it out and look at it, but there is a fencing requirement in the ordinance.
I didn't like walk the perimeter, it just looked like there were gaps where you could get in there easily and it looked like a safe kind of thing.
Okay, well, with respect to the motion that's on the table, the motion to adopt the amendment to the ordinance regulating junkyard and storage lots, is there any other discussion on that amendment? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries.
I think D is already happened, right? D and F.
Yes,
And
I concur. All right, is there any other old business? All right, turning then to new business. Whoa.
What you have is an application that has passed through the planning commission. They had 2 separate reviews for over 2 months, and it is a lot line revision. There are 3 lots that are adjoining, and they had little pieces, and one person's driveway was on another person's lot,
oh,
so
yeah.
they all work together to kind of clean up the area and have people really driving only over what they own, except for one little easement part. So it is cleaning up a bit of a jagged little section of property in this area. And it was reviewed by HRG, and they had them correct whatever was deficient, and it's recommended for approval by the planning commission.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
So I move to approve the Percival Chandler lot line revision plan.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I'm sorry to be obtuse, but I don't understand what's going on.
It's like a subdivision,
Okay,
except they're not cutting a lot in half. There are 3 lots that adjoin, and they were all, driveway came across this way on this person's lot, so they shifted a lot line here, traded ownership of a few pieces of land. So
okay.
you basically, you're approving them moving their property lot lines.
And it's,
One property owner had part of their driveway on the other person's property. The other property owner had their lot or their house bisecting 2 lots that they own. So they combined those. It was basically cleaning up some bad survey from back in the day.
and how many, it's 3 property or lots that are affected or 2?
3. So it's hard to see, but it's a section, there are 3 properties right here, and they just shifted some lots.
3 different landowners,
Correct.
and so all the landowners consent to this?
Yes.
And the property or the planning commission has considered this and is in favor?
Correct.
Ben, you've considered this and you're in favor?
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you. Discussion of street opening ordinance draft.
It's a very preliminary draft based on a conversation last month, when Justin Davis was here and he was talking about if Columbia Gas or any other utility or anybody's gonna come and dig in the roadway, wanna make sure that we have a strong ordinance that dictates the kinds of repairs that are done to the streets when somebody cuts open our pavement. And so this is a draft, no action yet, because I haven't even marked it up yet. But this is a draft that's from another municipality that has a pretty strong street opening ordinance. And this is a draft for the board to consider, see if you want to have me advertise or adopt this ordinance.
You need to review it first?
You
Harlan, you already reviewed it?
He reviewed it, but
Yeah, I have reviewed it, and it actually combines a number of pretty strong regulations. For one thing, it requires a deposit by whoever's going to open the street. it differentiates between a Columbia Gas type or a utility that opens the street versus a resident who has an emergency like flooding on their property, who needs to open the street for some other reason and may not have the wherewithal of a utility to post the same level of bonding or the same level of deposit. So there's a differentiation between a residential property owner and an institutional street opener, if you will. And it also has a pretty strong provision in there that deals with the ability of the township to impound equipment of whoever violates the ordinance, which is also a pretty strong provision. Communities differ on how strict they want to be with, usually it's the utility companies when they open the street. Also, you have this particular ordinance also includes a 5-year provision where you cannot open a street unless it's an emergency if it's been reconstructed within 5 years. So that encourages utility when they get told that we're repaving the street. If you have any plans now, you got to bring it in now, and you got to tell us, because once we put the pavement down and once the job's done, for 5 years, you can't just come in here unless it's an emergency, and unless you got to dig up a line for some. So it's a good ordinance. I reviewed it. I've seen similar ordinances, and a lot of it is actually targeted at some of the work that's being done now by Columbia Gas. So, and Columbia Gas is actually operating under similar ordinances in other municipalities. So it's, so yes, I reviewed it.
So why don't you take a look at it, mark it up, and hopefully for the workshop meeting next month, we can have a draft that we can circulate and let people know what we're doing.
Should I advertise it for adoption at the July legislative meeting? Time, or do you want to advertise it for August?
Why don't we plan on doing that in August?
Yeah.
Make sure we have enough time to review after you've done
I'll
your
get it
work.
advertised, the date set for the August legislative meeting.
And we're going to need some input too, like in terms of what you want the permit fee to be. There's some. So I guess we can talk. Glenn and I can talk about that. But we are going to have to plug in some essential terms.
Okay. I'd also any other discussion with respect to the street opening ordinance. All right, turning to one other matter of new business, I would just like to have us note for our agenda for our July workshop meeting is that Vice President Jones and I were at a meeting with concerned resident and some activists concerning fracking and our ordinances with respect to fracking and some of the related activities. And I don't think the legislative meeting is the right place to start that conversation, but I do think it's a conversation that we should have with respect to some of the suggestions that they made. So perhaps if we put that on our July workshop agenda, that would be an appropriate time to talk about the things that were suggested.
I was of the understanding that there's an ordinance, is it City of Pittsburgh or is it Allegheny County that does not allow any fracking?
You can't.
Is it Pittsburgh?
City of Pittsburgh.
City of Pittsburgh.
They
Okay.
banned it. Talking about Doug Shields. Yeah.
Yep.
Gwen already obtained the updated Bell Acres ordinance.
Yeah, let's give them a longer presentation.
Good.
Okay. Any other new business? All right, citizen participation. We still have some hangers on here. Anybody want to say anything? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Sandy Moore, Redgate Road. Just a question. When you guys, at the beginning of the meeting, you approved the applications, I thought you said Merriman Road. Correctly? I was thinking it was in our project on Redgate.
Well,
It may
might
not
be
be
an opening on
like
Redgate.
it's
I think the properties themselves are being consolidated into a parcel that is actually on Merriman. And I don't think there's going to be access from Redgate.
So is it being consolidated into their big giant lot and block?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thing?
Yes.
Is that considered being on Merriman?
Yes.
That's the part I didn't
Yeah.
realize. Okay, and that's fine.
Yes.
I just needed clarity. And, oh, I'm sorry. And we're gonna be able to see what all the conditions were?
Yes, that we'll make those part of the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Those will be on a list
They'll
attached to
be
the
in
minutes.
So you'll be able to get them online.
Yes, thank you.
Will you make sure that's in the exhibit as well, an attachment? Well, you got a lot of work to do, Kim.
Kim,
It's a busy one.
By tomorrow.
Okay, any other citizen participation?
I introduced myself, I'm running state representative, my name is Sean. And the 44 legislative district.
She's running against Valerie Gatos and Mark Mustios, former seat, 2 tickets. She's the Democratic candidate, and Valerie Gatos is the Republican candidate for our district. Nice to meet you
Welcome, nice to meet you.
again.
Yes,
Again, I thought he was gonna say that. For the Amazon, of course, this lets me say, remember months ago you did laugh at me about Amazon? Oh, okay. Anyway, and that's all. But anyway, I thought the article maybe said something about delivery drivers, I guess in cars. So maybe there may be more car trips versus big truck with a lot of packages. Smaller.
I did see that in the article as well, that they were talking
I
about
didn't
that.
see that.
Yeah, and-
Really?
yeah, I mean, my understanding from,
I'm not sure, I tried to pull it up on my phone, but, you know.
my understanding from, again, this comes from talking to a reporter, so consider the source, right? It's not a primary source.
Right.
But the reporter said to me that this is an Amazon function that's somewhat akin to Uber. So it's Uber meets Amazon, where individual residents, when they meet certain qualifications from Amazon, I guess they've taken a course and they've had their vehicle inspected or something, can come to this facility, pick up packages, and do the last mile distribution for Amazon, so that Amazon's not hiring UPS or FedEx to.
So, which brings me to, I'm gonna think what Carolyn Smith was trying to emphasize is that there's not just gonna be a big giant FedEx truck, one truck driving on the road. There's gonna be multiple cars. So that would make more road trips. Now,
Perhaps. I mean,
well, if it's gonna be like Uber and everything's gonna be the last mile and individual drivers, they can't carry as many packages as a big giant truck can. Right? So,
yeah, I don't know anything about the
That
law.
may be the case, but there's nothing that we can really
I
do
can't
about it.
tell you
I said that may be the case, but there's nothing that we can really do to stop them from doing that.
that it's for road trips, doesn't matter. It's not a limitation.
The state road.
So is Deer Run, right, the best state roads? All right,
But even if it weren't a state road, I mean,
Right. I mean, at some point, if the traffic becomes an issue, you would have to do a traffic study. You might want to put in a traffic control device of some sort. That ever became an issue, but it is a public street.
Yep.
Cars are allowed to go up and down.
right, understand, but I mean,
If it were new development, we might have some control over that through the development process, but it's not.
so down the road, that would be something to maybe consider that there is a lot more traffic.
After it's proven to be a problem.
Right, okay, understood. Thank you.
I mean, the way I was thinking about it, and Harlan, tell me if I'm thinking about this incorrectly, but the way I think about it is that property is owned by a private owner, and they have somebody that's coming in to lease that space. We have as little to say about who leases that space as we do if there's a condo in the Sewickley Heights Manor that's being rented to somebody. We don't get to come in and say, you can do this, you can't do this.
a sense, but okay, if you're renting a condo, it's one, I don't know how many people can live in a condo. You know, maybe there's 4 people that live in it, that's 4 cars. This is a lot, could be possibly a lot bigger scale.
Well,
Because they have a lot of,
it's a zoning question. The zoning for the building that we're talking about is zoned for the purpose that we
Right.
think they're gonna use it for.
I understand that.
Swickler Heights Manor, the property, the condos there aren't zoned for being a distribution center, so you couldn't do it there.
Well, no, I didn't say it would be a distribution center. I said if you're renting a condo, somebody's allowed to rent their condo. So you rent it to me, maybe I have 4 people might live there, and all 4 of us have a car. That's 4 cars. This, okay, it's commercial or whatever it is. You could have hypothetically 20,000 cars going in and out all night. I don't know the statistics, I'm just making a number. But you could have a lot more traffic, way a lot more, because it's individuals driving cars. I'm not sure why I'm still explaining this. If you have a big truck, it has lots of packages on it, it's one truck. I don't know how many trucks used to come up and down the hill a day, it doesn't matter. They hold a large volume of packages. Individual cars do not hold a large volume of packages. So you need more cars that hold that big giant volume of packages
Well, you vocalized
to
your,
deliver.
you vocalized your concern
I
quite
know
well.
I did, but
I
you guys-
guess you did a study right now out there. The result would be that this road is highly underutilized under
Okay,
US
whatever.
DOT
I'm just making
standards.
a comment, just understanding what, it shouldn't be this long of a discussion. You know,
I don't disagree that there's a possibility that there will be increased traffic.
There will be,
thank you.
there will be.
Anybody else? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Or traffic, that becomes a traffic control issue. It's a different issue from a zoning issue.